Hey everyone, it's the Shawn. Welcome to another edition of the Influencer of Tomorrow show. This show is dedicated to you, those influencers who want to build your presence and do more. So sales professionals, business leaders, business managers, wherever you're at and you want to get more of your message out to people. That's what this show is about. We've been bringing experts on here, as you know. If you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel, go ahead and do that. That's our dedication. That's our process. Today we have Dianna Geairn joining us. She does trade show makeovers, and she has some very interesting ideas about how to leverage shows and events. So we thought it would be a great message to bring to you guys to help you kind of understand what can you do to use that time when you're in person with people, right? Time is scarce when you're in person with people, conferences, events. How can you get more out of it? I'm joined today by my regular co-host, George Hendley. My longtime speaking coach. As you know, he knows all of the background and materials of how do you present effectively, how do you leverage your time on stage, how do you build your presence. So I'm excited to be doing this project with him. For those of you who don't know me as well, I'm the Shawn. I'm a corporate lawyer by training. I help people with ownership and control of their business. That's mergers, capital raise, partnership agreements, contract negotiations. And all of that has moved me to think about the future of business, which is where my Future Done Right show comes in, and this show, which is about building your influence for tomorrow. We want to hear from you, so folks, drop your comments below, whatever you're thinking, what you're learning from us, what questions you have. We may beg Dianna to come on again if you raise a good topic that we need to talk about. So get them in there, drop your comments. We want to hear from you. What are you learning? What are we missing? What are we going to cover in the future? What can we help you with? That's what we want to do. Quick reminder, as always, we don't do investment advice or legal advice on the show. For those items, consult your own advisors. Everything here is just for your education. So that sets it all up. With that, Dianna, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Shawn and George. It's really, really good to be here with you.
It's fun. You and I got to talk once before on a different show, and it was very interesting. I like people to think about is, the future of this is done through personal connection. I mean, that's really it. People now, with all the automation, the machine learning, all these automated bots and messages, it puts a real premium on getting the true connections. So Dan, why don't you talk some about what you're doing in that area with the shows and events and how people can really make true connections that lead to business and increasing their influence?
Fantastic. So thank you for that lovely introduction. So what we're up to with Trade Show Makeover, I co-founded this company with Alice Hyman. Mm-hmm. It's really not a brand new concept. It's very much an extension of the training and coaching that she and I have been doing for decades and the practicing, frankly. But what we've seen, and I don't think it's totally new, but what we've seen is that trade shows have become something of a very expensive marketing activity. And many companies are having a very difficult time proving that there was return on investment from this, huge expenditure. Mm-hmm. So what we do is we just bring really thoughtful, sane, modern selling approaches, not marketing, although now they are blending more and more than ever, but solid, sane sales practices to trade shows and live events, so that people are bringing home business from these activities. So to your point, sales is traditionally a one-to-one activity. Marketing is considered a one-to-many activity. So what we're finding is, just like you said, in this very digital age where we're being solicited by robots, we're being spammed by automation. What we're finding is that starts to make live events and trade shows and those kinds of opportunities a real premium. And done well, when you know how to really do that and make those connections, it's still relationships that close business at the end of the day. People still aren't yet doing signing on the line that is dotted with a robot.
Yeah, it's getting less and less common. I mean, you hit an interesting point there about this convergence of sales and marketing, and I think it's gotten more and more confusing for everybody. Why don't you speak to that a little bit about just what you're seeing? Because we're seeing the same thing. It's like more and more now, it's your marketing efforts lead to closing a sale. What are you seeing in your world as you're working with your clients?
It's a really great question. I mean, one of the things, and I was so happy to hear a marketer say this to me the other day, so I'm gonna pin it on them. But they said, we kind of screwed it up for the sales team because we, put all these technologies in place and all these kind of blah messages. He didn't say
right.
blah, I don't think, but just generalized messages, and sort of did a scorched earth outreach. And then our salespeople have to come in and combat the damage that they actually did. So what salespeople find themselves doing is creating the messages. It's the old ADA model. Are you familiar with the old? Yeah, George is like, yeah.
Yep.
Can I have your attention? And then I want to get your interest, so that it sparks a desire, so that you take an action. Right. So that's something that salespeople now have to be responsible for many times, is, getting even the first initial conversation started, attracting that customer to take an action, which is to have a conversation with them. And, nobody wants to have a conversation with a salesperson until they're really ready to explore a purchase. So salespeople have had to just get a lot better at those marketing activities that they weren't really doing before. Although I'll tell you, the best of the best of the best of the best of the best salespeople have always been responsible for generating their own leads. So I think it's just, I just think it's taking the sales profession up a notch, frankly.
Yeah, and so, you mentioned a little bit in there about kind of the scorched earth marketing or the overly broad marketing, because, what I'm hearing from more and more salespeople, and I guess this flows into the trade show world, people are reading and learning and building this whole background, and trade show is probably a part of this process, right? People are going to look at the website, they're going to look at your material, they're going to read customer reviews, and then meeting you in person is probably a critical juncture in that.
Yeah.
You've got to set the tone the right way the whole way, because people make their buying and selling decision more and more without even, or less and less with talking to the salesperson, right? It's more about that process leading up to that first conversation rather than just a conversation, which 10 or 15 years ago, more of the sales process would have been based on that conversation, right?
Well, I think that's right. And this is where I think trade shows become really critically important. And as always, I think it's most important to look at, why are your buyers at a trade show? Mm-hmm. Like, it's really interesting to hear what the marketing people think and the sales people think about being at a trade show, but ultimately you want to know why is your ideal customer at a trade show? So the first thing that we work with our customers to discover is, are you attending the live events where you're going to meet those ideal customers? Because if they're not there, then don't spend your money on it. Find the place where they are. And there's a whole strategy that we work through with people to make sure they're going to the right shows. But to your point, people are coming to get educated. Mm-hmm. But what a lot of people don't understand is many executives are also coming to buy. Right. So they want to get a real sniff test for your company, what it's going to be like to meet with you. And it's harder and harder to do that in our digital age because of all the spam that they're getting that they just have to ignore, and the voicemails. As a salesperson, you're being ignored more than ever before. But these executives do show up at trade shows, and they call me all the time. This a CEO called me the other day, and he said, "Dianna, you're doing the right work, because I walked into this trade show with a very specific desire to buy. I wanted to find the right seller. I had $50,000 in my pocket for our first year of engagement. He wanted to buy a SaaS product, ready to write a check." And nobody engaged him. And the two people that he did engage in their booth, all they did was pitch him. They didn't employ any of these really beautiful sales techniques or skills that people should know. And he walked out of that trade show frustrated with a check still in his pocket. But that's not even the saddest part of the story. The saddest part is that all of those people that were good solutions for him don't even know that they missed an opportunity. Right. It's just invisible to them.
It doesn't show up on their radar, doesn't show up on our track. George, were you going to jump in there? I saw your...
Yeah, I saw George getting really excited.
Yeah, well, because of my age, I consider myself old school. But old school has been forgotten from the point of view of the great principles that it's built around. And I'm watching you, Dianna, and right now it's just like your face is lit up. You're very, very enthusiastic. Your eye focus is like right on the camera. You're exemplifying someone who knows how to talk to his, her client or prospective buyer. And unfortunately today, too oftentimes people are too into themselves and not into the person that they're speaking to. And so they miss these subtle buying clues that they could be finding, recognizing, and attaching to. The old saying is still true. People buy on emotion and they justify with fact or logic. If you're not seeing the emotional element of that buyer and what he or she is really wanting, you miss it.
Well, thank you. I could not agree more. So this is a real aha moment for our clients sometimes, George. That emotional component is when you think about it, because people think B2C, business to consumer, is where the emotional buy is. When you think about it, when was the last time that you lost your job because of the watch that you bought?
Right.
These business decisions that people are making are their whole career, their marriage, their kid going to college, the way they feel about themselves, if they're going to retire early. These are things that are real about the decisions that they're making with some of the products that they're buying. So they want to come in and get a real feel, and there's no better place to do it than a live event. And I know this is a lot about influencers as well. And the one thing that is critically true about shows, it's true about magazines, it's true about Netflix, content is king. So if you, and you know, I hire George, but if you can be someone who can get up on a stage at these live events and be an educator and be influential and demonstrate your thought leadership in a way that is powerful and compelling, and then go show up at the booth afterwards. It makes me crazy that these CEOs give this great speech
and then talk to them, really talk to them.
Yeah.
Right. See, and so I don't mean to make fun because these things seem so obvious to us, but that's what I mean by just these little aha moments. You only have to have 2 or 3 aha moments to completely turn your trade show into a profitable experience.
Sure.
Yeah, and I think there's an important point there you talked about, right? So, you know, George, you know, works with me on the stage presence, right? And that took me a while to break out of the old me and get to where, you know, you can effectively and comfortably deliver material. George is laughing because he knows how I originally was as a speaker several years ago. So there's video available, folks. It's out there.
I just can't wait.
but you know, so you got to connect with people while you're on stage, and there's certainly tools and tricks, and George knows those tools and tricks that you brought them to me. But the step beyond that is to actually stop and connect with people, right? I mean, you know, once in a rare while, yes, you speak on stage and somebody will pick up the phone and call you, but then go to the booth and have people come to you, right? How do you set that up? I mean, what you know, I imagine there's an element of physical layout to that and just the right process. What do you do with your clients in those types of situations where maybe somebody's going to do something public, give a presentation, give an award or something, then go back to their booth? What's the right way to set that up?
Well, it's very intentional. And I'd be really interested actually to hear George's opinion on this because I already know my opinion. So I'll share with you really quickly what we advise our clients to do. First of all, most of our clients are initially bringing the wrong people to the trade show. You know, so you do want one of your top sales development representatives with you because they get a sense of the industry and they get a sense of what an in-person sale looks like and they get a sense of the competition in a way that they couldn't have otherwise. But who you really want are the subject matter experts, your product engineers, your CEO, your CRO. You know, people want to talk to executives. So what I encourage people to do is when they're at the stage, that they come off the stage and they engage right there. There will be people that want to engage with them right at the show. But on the way out the door, you want to have your next in command, you know, maybe your chief revenue officer at the door. And then you want this kind of it's kind of like a wedding reception. Do you know? You want that whole procession to kind of fall naturally into the store that you've essentially built. As you know, your trade show presence is kind of like your mini mall, where the people can get even more of a sense of you inside of an environment that you've intentionally created. So it's not so much of, you know, who's where, but there's a flow to it that automatically sort of magnetizes people and captures people as they're moving in a natural procession. But what do you think about that, George?
I have to say, I'm looking at you right now, Dianna. It looks like you're in your kitchen.
That's so funny. I'm in my office. I do have a coffee maker in my office.
Well, I see what looks like. Oh, I guess, is that the floor? This is the floor. For a second, though, I thought that was like a...
This is my desk. Here, I'll show you.
Oh, it's a desk. Okay. So
that's my desk. Oops, that's so messy. That's my file cabinet.
I thought it was like the island in the middle of the kitchen, because in the back I see what looks like a coffee maker.
I should fix that. That's kind of weird. No, I'm sitting in an office.
But what I was thinking was, it looks like it's, quote, home. And you look comfortable in that environment. And there is no barrier between you and us. And we can see you. And it's just like, it's like a natural conversation. And if you ever watched The Voice on television, you see that one of the things that the great performers learn to do is they get down close and touch the people and let the people touch them. And they have that literal physical touch where there's no barrier, and people can see each other eye to eye, and they can relate to them as another person, because ultimately it's a person on the end of that phone at the other computer. And if you're not relating well to the person, it's over. It's done. It's finished. And they go to next, 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 until they find that relatable person and environment they can deal with.
Ah, so true.
Yeah, and I think George, you've driven home something from the speaking coaching and the speaking work we've done over the years into the trade show, right? You don't want a physical barrier there, right? I mean, the podium's a physical barrier when you're speaking. So, you know, free tip for anybody watching right now, you know, in most situations, you want to get rid of that podium.
Yeah.
And avoid that, because it prevents you from the wall. Dianna, probably same deal at your booth, right? You got to figure out how to get to where people can access you. You don't want a huge space or gap between you where people can't feel connected or can't feel like they can have a conversation with you.
It's the first thing that we tell people. It's actually brilliant, George. If we tell people nothing else, we say, get that table back against your, you know, whatever it is that you've got back there, you know, your stand-up sign or whatever. Get the table back there and create an environment where somebody wants to step in and make it inviting. You want to kind of think about it like it's your home. Mm-hmm. And you're graciously inviting your guests into an environment that you've intentionally created so they can have a specific experience. Yeah. And I wanted to point something out that George was pointing to a second ago. So, I mean, and I don't mean to make fun of them, but we have all of these organizations that are helping companies create, you know, experiential marketing is the big deal these days, right? Because these trade shows are very loud and noisy and people have got a lot coming at them. So the big thing of the day is make a memorable experience. Yeah. But George nailed it. If you just listen to somebody's words and get interested in what they're talking about and even reflect back a little bit to them that it matters what they're saying, you will be so memorable, it will blow your socks off. That is, so I encourage people to do all the things that they do to, you know, attract inside of that environment. But how to be memorable is to listen to somebody.
Well, you know, and you're getting back to basic nuts and bolts Dale Carnegie, right? You know,
that's like, right. That's right.
Be interesting by listening to other people, right? I mean, like we are going like really old school human philosophy, right? Connection by just listening to people and talking about what's important to them.
Yeah, which is why, you know, our clients often, when we first start working with them, they're sort of like, well, why do we need you? Everything that you're talking about is so obvious. And, you know, to a degree it is, although there is a lot now that people don't understand about the the things that you can use to capture people's attention where they are. They're using social media wrong. I even hesitate to use the word social media, but there are really wonderful ways to engage and connect with your buyers in meaningful ways that are modern, that people aren't using. But I think it's more what becomes valuable to them about working with us, and this is not a pitch, but it's just to understand that when you're going into an overwhelming kind of marketing activity, when you actually break down to a replicable process where you know what to plan, how to plan, when to plan, what to execute, when to execute, how to execute, and then when to follow up, how to follow up, and what to follow up on, then these very obvious things that you should be doing become things that you actually do in a meaningful way, and things don't get dropped out. And it's just always the little things that turn the big ship.
That's right. That's right.
And, you know, it's a lot of little things, and I think that's critical, right? And just, Dianna, I think your expertise is what are all the little switches that you can turn in and out of a trade show, and I think you've given people a lot of great tips here. I've already made a note. We want to try to bring you back in the future and go deeper on this because we've run out of time here, but I mean, I've learned a lot, and I hope our audience has as well. Dianna, how do people find your work? How do they find you?
Yep. Come see us at www.tradeshowmakeover.com. We're about to have an upgraded site, but you can also just book 30 minutes with me for a laser coaching session. And I challenge you to do it. You won't do it, but you should. Just go to calendly.com/tradeshowmakeover and find 30 minutes with me. And I promise you at least one aha moment that leads to revenue.
There you go. Well, that's a promise for you, folks. Great stuff. Check it out. It was a very valuable session. Thank you again, Dianna. Those of you watching, pat yourself on the back for doing the hard work, investing in yourself, investing in your business. I want to remind you, you can go to the Influencer of Tomorrow YouTube channel. We want to see your comments. Let us know what you learned. Let us know what questions you have because we'll come back and address them. Make sure you're subscribed because we'll be bringing you more tips and tricks to help you build your influence. You can also go to influenceroftomorrow.com, get on our email list to get some inside tips and tricks, which we don't cover on the show. See our past guests, see our upcoming guests. We want to stay connected with you. We want to help you build your influence. So hope to see you back again. And Dianna, thanks again for adding.
Thank you, George. Thank you, Shawn. It's great to be here.